What a bullet! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. Here's Sir Rory now. On the outside, decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Sir Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly, finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell, saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
On it by Paul Patella, off for a hat trick.
He's got it. Hat trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day.
Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Comes up shot.
Oh, the goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class.
Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello, I want to welcome along to the latest instalment of the TurfCast podcast. Full-time show with me, Joe Redmond, after a dramatic but not very dramatic game against Preston North End that ended 0-0 at Deepdale. Dramatic for stuff that happened away from the action, but the action itself wasn't so dramatic. I did promise everybody that Sam would be here, and I can promise you all he is. There we go. Thank you, Sam, for just joining. I love that. And when he came on then, he was just chilling like this. Just chilling. No rush whatsoever. No rush whatsoever.
Sorry,
but yeah, it's all right, mate. I'm only messing with you. You'll be glad to know Kieran's in the chat. He says evening, lads. Obviously, he didn't say evening until you popped up. He's just letting everybody know that he's here now that you're here. Hello, everybody. Lads, how we doing? Are we all right? We haven't done one for a couple of weeks, have we?
Good, mate.
Good, mate. Yeah. Happy days. Yeah. Keep your comments coming in. Dominic Hall says, looking forward to this, lads. My compulsory Sunday night viewing. Evening Hall says, Scott, another clean sheet, another point. That's one way of looking at it, mate. Claret Al says, evening, Claret. Dominic Hall goes on to say, we need to start winning games, Scott, even if that means conceding. Yeah, completely agree. Late as usual, says Martin. Off your pop, Martin. Miserable sod. I love you really, mate. Andrew says, hello all. Scott says, agree with Dom. Claret Blue 1882 said, even Clarence, looking forward to talking about a game I didn't even watch, but everybody's talking about for the wrong reasons. That's great to know. And yeah, keep all your comments coming in. Obviously, there's quite a lot we need to discuss. There's some things that I think we should discuss before the football. Obviously, the incident with Hannibal, just to give everybody an updated state of play. Obviously, I'm sure everybody's aware that Hannibal is accused Osmajic of racially abusing him on the game yesterday. Obviously, I was at the match, and I was a little bit like, why are we stopping here? I don't really understand what's gone on here. But then when Hannibal started acting the way he was acting, I remember I turned around to the lads behind me because they're all saying, like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's going on. And I was saying, I reckon he said something racist to him. Just the way Hannibal's acting, I just reckon he has. And obviously, all came out since that's what Hannibal is accusing him of. There was a tweet last night by Burnley Express, Matt Scrafton, friend of the show, to be fair, that said, that claimed that a Preston fan had also been arrested and charged with a racially aggravated offence towards Hannibal after the full-time whistle yesterday. PNE police actually came out and denied them claims. But Matt has not doubled down on such, but come out today and said the police are investigating something, but nobody has been arrested. So he probably went a little bit early with the arrest. But the police are investigating a Preston North End fan with some racially aggravated offences as well. So they're looking into the player. The investigation's there. The players, obviously, Burnley have backed Hannibal, as you'd expect. Preston have come out and said Osmajic denies it, as you'd expect. He's come out and said that he claimed he called him a bad man. He said, F you, bad man. Which, if he was 12, you'd be like, yeah, fair enough. but nobody older than the age of 12 says bad man in their vocabulary unless they're, from South London and think they're a roadman. But obviously Hannibal's saying he said the word black man, which sounds a bit more plausible. But again, we'll let the investigation sort of like run its course and see what happens. But I'll go in screen order. I'll just say to everybody what I said off air. Feel free to say what you want on the matter. Just don't get yourselves arrested or sacked, is what I would imagine for slander or anything like that. But let's just go in order of the screen. Let me know in the comments what you think about the incident as well. I will read out the best ones. But yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts on the Hannibal incident?
Yeah, I was same as you. I were at the match and all of a sudden it just sort of stopped. Turned around to the lads behind us and said, what sort of happened? And one of them went, he said something to him. It's one of them where, like you say, at this moment in time, we don't know exactly what's happened. So it's hard to judge. Like the way that Hannibal reacted, it was obvious that something has happened there. All right, fair enough. He might not have said something racist, but there was obviously something there that incited the reaction from Hannibal, because we all know that Hannibal's the shithouse that we love, and he gives as much as he gets back, and he's always laughing it off. And for him to react to the way that he did sort of makes me think that something was definitely said there. But at this moment in time, we don't know exactly what was said. I back Hannibal to the hills because he's our player, and it's 2025. Like, if what the Preston player has said is racist, if what he has said is racist, then the lad should get the book thrown at him, because it'll be the second time this season he's banned for something ridiculous out of football. But yeah, it's 2025. There's no room for it. Not much more I can say, really.
Yeah, fair enough. Sam, your thoughts?
Similar to Andrew, really. I mean, we're in a totally different time period now. This is not something that should ever happen, let alone now. So, I won't get into it too much, but obviously, there's no room for it in life in general, let alone in football. So,
yeah, no, completely agree. Chris, your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, that same as the other two. That's really just, it's obviously wrong. I think the issue's maybe going to be proving it, because there's not really any kind of conclusive evidence that we've seen. My concern with it is that it'll just be batted off as like he said, she said kind of thing. Because the camera angle, you can see him say F off, and then he kind of goes into the back of his head, doesn't he? You can't see him. Like, that might be my concern with it, that they just bat it off because of lack of evidence. But I'd imagine in 2025 they'll look like as far into it as they can. And if they make I wouldn't be surprised if they made an example out of him anyway. But at the minute, it's difficult to say, isn't it? And you don't want to say too much. Like, you can't go and call him racist because you don't know that that's true. It's difficult at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, you could open up. You say if I call him a racist on here now, I could open up myself to court proceedings and stuff. If, for example, he's not proven guilty. But I agree with you. But I agree with you all, lads. But the point that you made about proving it, Chris, is what I've been saying on Twitter. The one clip we've seen so far, it says F you, and then it goes right behind Hannibal and hides behind his head to say what he said. And I think for me, why else would you be doing it? If you're calling somebody a bad man, you wouldn't be hiding what you're saying, would you? You wouldn't get so close up to them and hide what you're saying, in my opinion. So it looks dodgy, but I agree. If that's the only footage, then it's going to be inconclusive, and we're going to struggle to prove it. However, I have seen some people claim on Twitter that it can go down to sort of like likely evidence and things like that, or what they think happened rather than any evidence. I mean, I'm not sure how true that is, but we'll see. Apparently, the Suarez Everett case went down to something like that. But yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it and how it's done. But yeah, obviously, it stands with Hannibal and all that. Back into the hills, like Andrew said. But obviously, just got to let let the investigation go into the, ins and outs of it. And yeah, the only footage that we've seen, as me and Chris have mentioned, has been that bit of footage where Hannibal, where Biting McFat Chops goes up behind him and says it behind his head. But there will be cameras here, there, and everywhere. I know for a fact, obviously, from the away end on the left-hand side is that Invincible stand. By the way, that stand is awful. I thought it was nice the last time I went. I don't know what's happened to it. It's like it's all finished. But anyway, there's like there's a camera right there in the middle of that. So if that was fixated on him, that'll get the side profile of it. But obviously, the only footage that we've seen is what actually went out on Sky Sports yet. EFL and FA will go to Sky Sports and they'll get every single bit of footage from every single camera. And if that Invincible stand camera was on him, I think we might be onto something there, and we might be able to find something that was said, if it was said. Go on.
Like, it's 2025. Like, there's cameras all over the ground. Like, there's going to be some angle where you're going to be able to work it out. Like, there's that many cameras and that many angles. There's got to be somewhere. Because that footage that got shown on Sky Sports, it won't be the only camera angle, will it? Like, they're going to.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that'll just be the camera that the director chose and there, and that the replay operator had in the Dreamcatcher machine. That's literally all it'll be. But if there's more angles, which there should be, the EFL will look at that and the FA will look at that. But the thing is, if he is saying he said bad man, bad. I mean, no, I'm trying to think now. Lip reading, bad and the other word, black, do look quite different. But it would depend on the angle. So I mean, we're just going around in circles on it now. There's probably not too much else to discuss about it. But I'll just read some of the comments out. Adel Boog, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that last name, mate. Adel says, good evening from Canada. I'm a Tunisian fan, though. Mehdi Bahi says, due to the conflict, I'll be sharing this with Tunisians to follow the matter of Hannibal. Thank you for that, mate. I appreciate that. Simon Fisher says, hi, guys. Exhausted replying to the PNE goons on social media. And you know what, mate? I'm surprised at how they've acted, Preston fans. I genuinely am surprised at it's just tribalism. They've gone straight in on their player, which I kind of get. In to defend their player, which I kind of get. But just letting tribalism get in the way of it, rather than just letting the investigation take its course. And there's been so much whataboutery. Because 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a news article about a Burnley fan being charged for racially abusing a Blackburn player. Obviously disgusting. All the main fan pages and fans quickly condemned it and said he were I'll see you next Tuesday, which he is. But Preston fans have been using that as whataboutery, saying, "Oh, look at this, you're just as bad." That's not how to deal with this sort of thing. The FA Cup game, says Martin, is going to be an absolute banger. Completely agree, mate. Looking forward to it. I'm still not understanding when tickets are going to go on sale yet. Fingers crossed we get some more information tomorrow. But I'll be definitely going to that one as well. Dominic Hall says that Osmajic is a thugger and he's banning a Blackburn player now. And now this in a matter of a week. So, that Blackburn player biting him, that were a long time ago, mate. But I take your earlier point. He's a thug and quite clearly a coward. Foster needs benching. Yeah, we'll come on to that, mate. Scott. We'll come on to that, Scott. Murphy Brown says it was a genius time-wasting tactic, to be fair. Paul Johnson said it's going to make the... Yeah, he is, mate. I've just read that out by somebody else. Still think we win the league, says Chris. Again, we'll get into that. Just trying to find stuff on the Hannibal thing. Adel says, strange if he said that. Why he turned around immediately and tried to disappear? Exactly that, mate. The body language suggests otherwise, doesn't it? Wayne Ingham says, ban the Preston player. David Ashley says, as I said on X/Twitter, he should miss the rest of the season and a hefty fine if found guilty. I agree. I think if he's already missed, 6 to 8 games from biting that Blackburn player, they're going to look into that, and it's obviously his conduct's already been brought into disrepute, so he will be getting a hefty fine. Kurt Lehman says, time to show our support for Hannibal in a positive light. But he also goes on to say Simon also goes on to say he'll likely not be charged unless they take the lip reading as good evidence. I don't think anyone's serious about something horrific was said. It's just a matter of if it can be proven. Completely agree. Phil says, my brother watched the game from home. When I got back, he said as soon as he saw Hannibal's reaction, it looked like Osmajic must have called him something like, I won't read them out, but they're on your screen if you want to see them, but they're obviously racial slurs. Phil also goes on something along those lines. Racism was clear. We all know Hannibal gets all sorts of abuse, provocation every game, but he's never wound up like that before. Completely agree. And there's plenty more comments coming in on it, to be fair, even from Hannibal Medbury Fans TV. He says, proud of Hannibal's reaction to the situation. I agree. And as Kieran said earlier in the chat, tickets go on sale at Wednesday at 10 a.m. Do they right now? So, mate, I didn't know that. The ref was awful. Absolute dog shit. But I do feel like the ref handled that particular incident well. Anyway, let's move on from that. There's not much else we can say other than that. Obviously, back Hannibal. Hope he's okay at the minute. I would suspect he'll be fine. I feel like he's done everything right. The club have put a statement out. He's put a statement out. He's gone to the ref. He's told them, and hopefully he's playing on Friday. Although Chris might disagree on that bit, but that's for other reasons. But we'll get onto the game. Because as Phil Tricks Wilcox says there, a frustrating one. And I think that was my main takeaway, to be fair, because even though we were poor, and we were poor, I don't feel like we could have played as well as we could. I feel like in the middle we gave the ball away a little bit more than we usually do. We weren't as good with the ball, in my opinion. These stats as well, when they finally populate on your screen, which they're not doing, I'll just get rid of that and bring it back in a second. But I do feel like the stats show that we were on top, the better team. We just couldn't really turn it into goals. Like, we had chances as well. That's the main frustrating thing for me, is we had chances, and we had 3 absolute gilt-edged chances, and obviously a bit of a debate for a penalty as well. But we'll come on to that later. Fingers crossed that works now. Yeah, there we go. I'll just remove that comment from you, Phil, because it's obviously covering Sam. But look at the stats on screen there for you. XG is a full 1 from Burnley to their 0.27. 57% ball possession, 11 shots, 2 on target. They only had 5 shots, 1 on target. So yeah, the stats are heavily skewed in our favour, but obviously the one that matters is the 0-0, and that was because we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. I'll go in the opposite way this time. Obviously, Sam, I'll come to you first because you're coughing quite a bit as well. So I want to get you talking now before you lose your voice. Your thoughts on that game, please, mate? Because like I said, my main frustration was I felt like we were the better side, and I think the stats prove that. We just couldn't turn it into, I'm going to say, enough chances, but we had 3 clear-cut chances, to be fair. I do feel like the XG should probably be higher than that when you're playing against a team like Preston. Yeah, 3 big chances. Should score 1 of them and we win the match, don't we? But that's a problem. And it's been a problem throughout the majority of the season. We're not putting the ball in the back of the net enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it. I think that game for me is just another game where we are clearly the better team. We're going to be the better team in the majority of games that we play this season. But we physically have nothing going forward. And it's so sporadic when we do have it. Sometimes the chances come out of nothing as well, and you think, where's that come from? But it also makes you think, why do we not do this all the time? Like, I was sat with the old man watching the game, and we were saying, like, that last 5-10 minutes, we just threw the kitchen sink with them, as in, like, chances going forward, pressing high, trying to win the ball high, having Edwards run at his fullback and try and twist him in and out and putting the ball into the box, like. And we were saying, why are we the type of team now that sits and lets 70 minutes go by, where we think, oh, we've got control of the game, but nothing really happens. And then, unfortunately, when we do get the chances, they fall to somebody who, you know, with the greatest respect, is not he's not playing in the right position, but at the same time, like, he's still getting the opportunities. Yeah. And he's not taking them. And when a player doesn't take the chances, I have to argue, do they get into the team? We had it all last season under Company, and we've had it with so many players this year. Koleosho wasn't providing anything in the team, so got dropped. Brownell has had stints out of the team. Cullen had stints out of the team last year. Sorry, guys. And I just think now is the time to turn around as Parker and say that experiment on the left-hand side is not working. I had the same argument for Jayden Anthony as well. I don't think he did anything in the game. I thought he was a passenger on the wing. You guys all know my opinion on him anyway. I even when he got his man of the match performance against Hull, I don't know where it came from. I don't think he was lightning in that game either. Like, he just flicks around and doesn't actually get the ball into the box. But then again, he's playing the ball up to Fleming, who doesn't hold the ball up very well because he's not a striker. We've all established that. Like, again, me and the old man were saying, that front three is a front three where you sit back and you think, are you confident with that front three? Like, going into every game, knowing that Foster's on your left-hand side, Anthony's on your right, and Fleming's playing through as the 9 every week. Because I can't sit there and say that I'm confident going into games. Fleming started to score goals, which is great. And, Fleming started to score goals and, all these other situations, but we just don't have, I don't know. I just don't think we have enough going forward. I don't think we've got a tactic set up for attacking. I think we're very happy to sit back in banks of 4 and lap everything up and hope that when the chances fall, they fall to the right person who takes them. We've had, I think what we need to do now is drop Foster, get Edwards playing on that right-hand side, try something else up front because that's clearly not working. Move Anthony back to the left-hand side where he was before and see how that goes, because you've brought a player in from Sporting Lisbon and I know he needs time to bed in, but I think now's the time to have that. And Hannibal starting in that 10 role again, I think he was, again, one of the creative players. He was one of the best players at Hull as well. So, yeah, I just think we're void of ideas going forward. And I think we've all said it over and over again. And I think the 0-0s are starting to get frustrating now. I know it's they're a decent side and they make it hard to win games, but if you're talking top teams in the division, Leeds would go and win there. And I know they didn't, so that doesn't make sense. But Leeds are able to go to a lot of teams in the division and steamroll them 3-4-0.
Yeah. Right now they are, yeah. I think if Leeds play Preston tomorrow, they're in that same game, same scenario, they'd win it. Yeah.
And we unfortunately just don't have that. And that can come down to, we're all crying out for a striker and things like that. But, in saying that, we do create some chances. They just fell to the wrong person yesterday. And I think that now speaks volumes on his place in the team for me personally. I don't know about you chaps, but and then I'd just like to see just something a little bit different. I just think we need to not look so lost going forward, because I just think right now every time we go forward, it comes backwards. You play it into midfield, you think Cullen can turn, get it out wide, and it goes back to Steve and we start it again.
I think for me, the reason why it always comes backwards is because it doesn't stick to Fleming. It just doesn't stick to Fleming. Like, you play the ball into Fleming and he's not the type of player that can make the ball stick to him and then get it out wide. That's what was happening yesterday. It kept coming back to us because it was going to Fleming, and then 50% of the time it was bouncing straight off him. It were hard work yesterday watching us, and I do agree with your points on Foster. We'll go into Foster a little bit, individually a little bit more. I think obviously we won't go in too hard on him, but yeah, I completely agree. I've sat here and said several times, let's give Foster a run in the 9 before we start slagging him off. I don't like him on the left wing. Then he had a couple of half-decent games at left wing that made me think, maybe he's okay there. But a number 9, it's like you said, the chances are still falling to him. So number 9, Ashley Barnes, for example, would have scored at least one of them goals, in my opinion. At least one, especially that second one. He does well, to be fair, to create it, but he really should be putting it in the back of the net. But I've lost my patience with him now. I agree. Drop him, give him a spell on the sidelines, bring Edwards in. Really got no other option apart from Ashley Barnes. So keep maybe Fleming, in the 9/false 9, and then hopefully Edwards and Anthony can play quite well on the wings, because I do think Anthony is hit and miss, more hit than miss recently, but he was average at best yesterday. Murphy, I've had enough of you, mate. I've completely had enough. I've never. Show me where I said that, pal. I said I think he'd do well this season. I'll give you that. I said I think he'd do well this season. But yeah, breaking news. I've seen more information, and I've changed my mind. So I don't really see what the issue with that is. But yeah, I think it's time to drop him. I really, really do. Spend some time on the sidelines. Put Edwards in there, and then hopefully we can kick on from there, because I do think Edwards has looked great. Anyway, Chris, we'll come to you. What are your opinions on that match yesterday, please, mate?
I said it on Twitter yesterday, and I took quite a lot of stick for it, but I didn't think the performance was as bad as a lot of people made it out to be. And like I said it in our chat as well, I think if we go there and we create it, to be fair, when I've watched it back, we created 4 massive chances. Foster has 2. Anthony has one early on where he should pass, and he shoots. But you can understand why he shoots when you see when Foster misses. And then Anthony has a chance in the second half as well. And then we should have had I think we should have had a penalty. So there's 4 massive chances we've had there and a penalty. There's a lot of people giving Parker stick for his system and his personnel, but the game plan that he went with to me, and I'm not a happy clapper. I'm not going to be yeah, it's great, we're 3rd in the league, let's all be happy. But the system that he went with, and he set us up to win that game, and we should have won that game. The reason we didn't win that game was because of them individual misses from Foster and Anthony. That's why we didn't win the game. I just think sometimes it's how much longer do you give him? People want him to play up front, but then misses are why he doesn't play up front. Because if that falls to any number 9 in the Championship, you put it it wasn't even close. The one that he put over the bar. If we're going to sit here and say let's give him some mitigating circumstances, the pitch wasn't great. Well, the pitch wasn't great, but that's not even an excuse. That's just horrendous.
Yeah, obviously it's on your screen now. The shot's just been hit. Look how high it is already there.
Yeah, 8. What is he there? 10 yards out from goal. If he's your number 9, you spent £10 million on him, and he can't hit the target from there, then something's wrong. He's not missed that because he's playing on the left wing. He's missed that because he's just not good enough. That's just the fact of the matter, unfortunately. We've given him chance after chance after chance, but there's only so many chances you can give him before you say, well, listen, he's just not good enough. And I think that's the stage we're at. Obviously, the failings of January now are coming back to bite us because we've got we've got options out wide, but up front, it's either Fleming or it's Foster. And neither of them are prolific because Fleming misses a good chance yesterday as well. He missed 2 against Oxford. Was it Oxford where he missed them 2 early on?
Yeah, it was.
He missed another sitter against Hull. So, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do you go with Foster, who can't come, if he fell in a barrel of tits, he'd come out sucking his thumb? Or do you go with Fleming, who couldn't score in a drug then? So you're stuck either way. So there's no real right or wrong answer. I just think going back to yesterday, the setup of the team wasn't really the issue. There's personnel changes I would make personally. I think there's players in that team who are getting free passes some weeks and they shouldn't be getting them. And there's others who are getting stick who shouldn't be getting as much stick. I know not just Sam, a lot of people in general don't like Anthony, but I do. I think he's a solid option on the wing. He's 7 out of 10 every week. You know what you're going to get from him. He'll go forward, he'll go back, and that's why he gets picked every week. So to me, he would go over to the left and I'd bring Edwards in on the right. Pick who you want up front. They're as bad as each other. My number 10, listen, I don't like Hannibal as a number 10. I think he should play deeper because the game just passes him by, I think, when he's at 10. And then my first person to drop would be Josh Laurent. I said it after the Blackburn game when he was everyone thought he was Busquets. Josh Laurent's a £500,000 footballer. He's good at what he does, which is getting around the pitch, knocking people off, winning the ball back and stuff like that. But he just doesn't see passes. He's never going to get on the ball and get you playing forward.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why the ball never comes forward and it doesn't get to Anthony quick enough. It don't get to Edwards quick enough. There was a time in the first half, the ball dropped to Laurent, and Hannibal was in behind their fullback and centre halves. The others were playing him on. All he had to do was just clip it over the top. He just doesn't even see it. Like, he's just not. You know, some people will be happy because he's a bruiser in there and he'll knock people about, but he's just not a good footballer. Like, in a game where you've got 60-70% of the ball, you don't need Laurent and Cullen together. You just don't. Maybe when we play Sheffield, you would, but you need someone like they're too similar. Like, if you can bring Shelvey in and you can get someone progressive with the ball, he needs to do something different. I do think some of the problems we have going forward come from that midfield three, because they're relatively similar. Like, Hannibal doesn't want to play up front, like holding Fleming's hand and getting around. He wants to come deeper and get on the ball and dictate play. That's where he's been good. And then we change it to bring Laurent in, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, for me, it's just, I wasn't unhappy with the performance yesterday. It was the result for me, and like that just come back to them missing chances.
Yeah, completely agree. And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned Laurent, because again, I've changed my mind because of new information, but I was one of Laurent's sort of like biggest fans, sort of like saying he should be in this team, because the amount of times earlier in the season where we just sit too deep and we won't really get out and we won't really create enough, because we wouldn't get forward, and he just drag us 30-40 yards up the pitch, and I absolutely love that about him. But we're already up the pitch now. We already play up the pitch, and we need a midfielder who's better. I said the exact same thing in my fan reaction. We need a midfielder who's got better technical ability and who can move the ball quicker. Josh Laurent can't move it quick enough for me when we have a lot of the ball. If we're playing against, when we play against Sheffield United, for example, Laurent would be a player that I would potentially choose in that match. But for now, in these sort of games, I agree. I think it probably is time to put another midfielder in there. I think there needs to be quite a few changes going forward now, if I'm honest with you. And to be fair, I did get a bit of stick for saying that on my fan reaction yesterday. It wasn't from Kieran, but Kieran's obviously giving us both stick now for saying we should drop Laurent. To be fair to Kieran, I've seen him being a Laurent defender for quite a while. But also, to be fair to Kieran, I don't think he could change his mind. Once he loves a player, he loves a player. And to be fair, I just don't think he's been good enough, and probably since the turn of the year, Josh Laurent, constantly too slow with the ball at his feet. Andrew, I'll come to you next, please, mate. Your thoughts on the match? Just bring some stats in for you. Obviously, we've already seen the stats that I brought in earlier. This is a player involvement and pass map. Obviously, on the left-hand side is Burnley, on the right-hand side is Preston North End. You can see that we are obviously higher up the pitch than Preston as a unit, but we're obviously a lot closer together than Preston as a unit. I looked at this and thought we were a little bit squashed. We were a little bit close together, and I thought maybe we should be spreading out a little bit more. I like the fact that Josh Cullen, obviously, the size of the player, by the way, just to explain these, it's pretty obvious, but some people might not be aware. The size of the player shows how heavily they've been involved, and the thickness of the line between the two players shows how often that pass between them two players has taken place. And obviously, where the player is on the position of the map is sort of like their average position on a whole, not just with the ball or without the ball, but on a whole, so with and without the ball. But I think that shows that we were the more organised team. We were the team that were higher up the pitch, because look at our defensive line compared to theirs. It's nice and solid. It's all in position. They're higher and further up the pitch. And you've got more players in the opposing half for Burnley than you do for Preston. You have got biting fat chops a little bit higher up the pitch than what Fleming was, but obviously we know that Fleming tries to play as a false nine, and Osmajic is more of a traditional number 9. I think I've not seen too much of him, but I think to me that shows that sort of like we were like the more organised team that wanted to play football and had a lot of the ball, but Preston obviously were difficult for us to break down to put the ball in the back of the net. But Andrew, your thoughts on the game, please, mate?
I think yesterday's game just sums up our entire season, to be honest. Like we had 11 shots and 2 of them were on target. Like that just sums up everything about this season. Like we're a team of 2 halves. Like I think I said it in my fan reaction. Like our defense, and then I'll keep banging on about it because it is incredible. Like this defensive record, it's incredible. Another clean sheet. Like is it 11 in a row now? Like, it's absolutely amazing. But then with no attack whatsoever. Like, if we're pinning all our hopes on Fleming, Barnes, and Foster to score the goals to get us promoted, like, that's, baffling, like, where we are at this point in the season. But yeah, I'm with Chris, because I don't think it was the worst performance. And if one of those chances go in and we walk away as 1-0 winners, everyone's buzzing and we're like, oh, what a great performance. But it's the fact that it's 11 0-0s this season now. Like, it's sort of getting a little bit tedious and a little bit to the point where you would rather concede a couple of goals to actually, get into those attacking positions. And I've seen like quite a few people be like, "Oh, I'd be willing to lose a few games if it meant that we were, playing nice football," which I think's daft, because it is the results at this moment in time. But the performances up until we get into the box are warranting the results. But as soon as we get to the box, it's like everyone shits themselves and don't know what to do. And yeah, it's just getting tedious. But like I say, I don't think the performances were too bad until we got to the box. And after that, they just shit themselves.
Yeah, completely agree. I just feel like pretty much the same issues that we've said all season. We just haven't been good enough at scoring goals. And yesterday was evident of that as well. Let's talk about Foster then, more individually. I mean, there's not much else I guess some of you can say, because I know Chris and Sam both mentioned Foster quite a lot. That's the first. I mean, I always feel like I have to caveat this by, I understand he had mental problems and we, stand by him. But at the same time, he's a professional footballer, and if he's missing chances, I should be able to criticise him when his job is to put the ball in the back of the net. This chance here, he should minimum hit the target. Minimum hit the target. You would expect a £12 million striker to score from there. Whatever he was, 10, I think 8. I can't remember how much he was, but he cost a lot of money for when we bought him in the Championship. And Vincent Kompany were always telling us about how he was a bargain. I think somebody put in the chat earlier. So it's one of them. I just feel like he should have scored from there. And then there's this one. I mean, what on earth I think is going on there? Like that's the moment he takes the shot, right? Look at where the keeper is. The keeper's off balance. The defender, to be fair to Lyle, he's took the defender out of the game. The defender on the edge of the 6-yard box, it's on the left-hand side of Lyle. He took the defender out of the game. You have to score that. All 4 of us would have scored that 100%. But would I have put the defender on his arse and created all that space in the box? Absolutely not. But in that particular moment, with that shot there, I would have scored that. And that's actually something else. Ignore that. I haven't got the other screenshot, but he's got to be scoring that. I'll come to you first, Andrew, because I know Chris and Sam have already mentioned Foster. But yeah, it's time. Do you think it's time to drop him, or would you rather see him in the 9? I've been sitting here saying let's see him in the 9 before we slag him off. But after the chances he missed yesterday, I think it's time for him to spend 2-3 weeks on the bench. Personally, I think it's time to drop him and bring Edwards in.
My time to drop him was before he came back from injury. Like, I agree with you. Obviously, like, we all know that he's had mental health issues. Like, it's well open, and like, we all back him and we all support him with that. But like, he's a £12 million striker, however much he were. He gets paid to do it. And he's scored 2 goals this season, if you include his one against Reading in the Cup. He's not hit 10 goals for us yet, and we've had him for over 3 years. Granted, he had time out for his injuries and for his mental health, but I'd have expected him to have scored 10 goals by now at Burnley, and he hasn't. And look, he had these 2 chances. He had the one against Hull. Not against Hull, sorry, against Oxford the other week, where he skied it over the bar. It's blatantly obvious he's not a goal scorer. And like I say, I like him. I'd like him to do well. I want him to score goals, but He's not good enough. If I missed them chances on Monday Night Football, like, I'd get the piss taken out of me. So for the striker who's on, let's say 20 mil a week, 20,000 a week,
20 mil a week.
I know, 20 mil a week, fucking hell. But if he's on 20 grand a week, like, you expect him, even if he hits target and the keeper saves them 2 shots, you're like, yeah, fair enough. But the fact he's missed them, that's the thing that concerns me more. If the keeper saves it, yeah, fair enough, but he's missed them, and that's what's shocking.
Yeah, Kieran Phillips, Burnley's brainiest resident, says third in the league in your own more. Obviously, Kieran's very happy with 0-0 at Preston, scoring no goals against Preston over the course of the entire season. The problem with Kieran is he struggles with critical thinking skills, and he can't understand the fact that we're mourning about this particular game. So, Kieran, give your head a wobble. As David actually says, Kieran Phillips, because we should be top, eh? Like, come on, mate. Like, we're allowed to have a whinge when we don't beat Preston and mourn about these chances, because obviously you think that these chances were difficult chances, don't you, buddy? But yeah, let's move on to you, Sam. I know you've kind of already mentioned Foster as well, but you didn't really talk about him at length. You just talked about him sort of like briefly within that. What are your thoughts on him at the minute, mate?
I think I do feel like you need to caveat it with, like, he is playing out of position, but like it's the same as when we talk about Fleming. Like, he's playing out of position, so what? You're a professional footballer. You should be able to pass the ball 5 yards, take a first touch. Like, you're doing what a striker should do, just playing on the left wing. And we are literally sat with... We created such good chances for him, and he's the one who's let us down in that game. They are chances that he should score.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the bigger issue in the team of, you can go even further into it, of Josh Brownell's still our top goal scorer. He's still the player who has the most assists for the team this year. The closest player to Brownell in goals is Fleming, and he's got 7. So he's behind a player who's meant to be playing behind him. And then Foster's got 1 goal all season, and he's playing every game on the left-hand side at the minute. Jaden Anthony's got 3 goals this year, and he's playing every minute for us. We are not creating enough chances for that number 9. And like Chris says, when we are, Fleming is missing chances. Fleming's missing chances in the Hull game. He's missing chances in the Oxford game. Foster's missing chances. Yeah, all right, Foster's creating chances in certain senses. Like you've said, he created that chance for himself a little bit. But you have to finish those. They are 2 chances that win us that game. And now is the opportunity for Parker. And it's not to make an example, and it's not to make an example out of him as a person or a player, but he's not in good form, okay? And we are not in what I would consider, and I know people will, jump on this and think that I'm just being overly negative. I still think we're in a great position being in 3rd place, but we are not playing like an automatic promotion team. We don't have that kind of form. We're not consistent enough in front of goal. We're not consistent enough in terms of results. And like Chris says, I think this is the only game so far where we can sit back and say, I actually think, a point, even though we had such big chances in the game, a point, fair enough. But it runs deeper than that now. Like, and it's not just Foster. This is the thing. Like, we are not a team. Like, we have 3 big chances a game, and if we don't take them, that's it. But there's teams that are mid-table that create more chances than that. There's teams that have come to us and created a lot of chances. We just have a fantastic defence. When it comes to Foster now, for me, he is on that left-hand side. He's out of it. He's so out of the game. I just don't understand why he's there. It's an experiment that Parker's tried, and it's not worked. So at what point do you change that? You've gone and signed a lad that was playing Champions League football at the start of the season. I know he's not had loads of game time and loads of time with the team. Get him in the team now, because that's the big of something has to change now. And I also think, you know, that game as well highlights, like we've all said, you know, the flaws in Fleming's game. And you know, I don't like to be negative because of the position that we are in. We are third in the division. We're still not far off top. But like Andrew says, Fleming's playing in that 9 role. Moving to the 10, what does that do? He suddenly can take that first touch. He can suddenly hold the ball up in the way that he should be doing. He should be able to make that 5-yard pass. These are things that he should still be doing, regardless whether scoring goals and being in the right place as an attacker is the only thing you can say, all right, fair enough. Like, maybe he doesn't know where to be. When Jaden Anthony's crossing the ball into the box, maybe he's running away from the ball. Maybe he's not in the right area. That's the only thing you can say positionally isn't working for him. Right now, the issues with Fleming is you lump the ball up to him and the ball never stays with him. So the ball keeps flooding back and we're constantly defending. And then we're constantly playing through the midfield. I am starting to agree with Chris on the Laurent situation. I don't think he's a bad player, and I don't think him being in the team is the entire reason why the rest of the team can't string 2 passes together and get into the box. But he's a bruiser in midfield and wins the ball back. He's not a get the ball and progressively think forward. But we all never said that. We all said he's fantastic to have in the team to win the ball back. But then you want to be giving it to the players like a Brownhill, like a Cullen who can get it wide. Get it wide to Anthony and get Anthony doing what he's good at, which is going at his man. I just think we've just got so much going on at the moment from an attacking perspective that it's not an easy fix anymore. It's not a case of swapping one player around and we can fiddle with a team and put Shelby in midfield. I genuinely just think there's too much.
You say that, and I agree. However, I do think bringing Edwards in will help a lot. Like when he's come off the bench a few times, obviously did quite well against Southampton with the goal. Did really well yesterday coming in. Looked good against Hull, and that brings me on nicely to the controversial incidents part of the show. Obviously, Chris, you've already mentioned it in passing a little bit, so I'm going to bring you in first on this to get your opinion more on that. Now, obviously with these, I know I say it every single week, but these clips don't really show the full incident. I can't show the video of it due to copyright issues. And this clip here does look nailed on pen for this one. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comments, whether you think this should have been a penalty or shouldn't have been a penalty. This is one of the ones that I genuinely struggle to make my mind up on, because when I first saw it, I'm like, that's a blatant penalty. Then I see a replay and I see that he gets a touch on the ball. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's okay then. Maybe that's why he's not giving it. But then when I look at it again, he's already down as a defender. And then the ball hits him rather than him winning the ball, if that makes sense. And then Edwards goes down. But then Edwards is already going down in a way. So I find this one incredibly difficult to make my mind up on. I think I'm just edging towards penalty for Burnley, but I can see why the referee's not giving it. And I genuinely think if VAR was in this game, I don't think they'd overrule that, if I'm honest with you. But I know you think it's a penalty, don't you, Chris?
Joe, I'm not joking. It's the clearest penalty you'll see all season, and we've had some bad ones not given against us. Like, again, I'll come back to it. Like, I'm not biased. Like, if it wasn't a pen, I'd say it wasn't. But honestly, anyone who's played football and that ref can't have done will tell you that, like, that has to be a penalty. When you dive in the box like that and you come flying, he's got forward momentum. He's going towards that stand that you can see in the far side. He doesn't win any of the ball. The ball's played onto his knee. It's the smallest touch of the ball you will ever see in your life. And he wipes Edwards out. Like, when you're coming towards that ball in the box and you dive in like that, you've got to win the ball. Like, there's not enough contact on the ball for anyone to say, oh, he gets the ball. He doesn't get the ball. The ball's played against him. and it goes out for a corner. He doesn't win any of that ball. The ball's played against him. When you come into the box, you just can't tackle like that in the box and expect that's not given. Like, we've seen tackles given this season where they've been 50-50s, bang, straight through him, won all the ball, still gone through the man. And it's a free kick and a yellow card because he's come in so rash. Like, I cannot believe how that's not been given as a penalty. And do you know what? He couldn't even see the touch because he's the wrong side of it. So how we give a corner?
I agree with that bit. I don't know how he's seen the touch. I do agree with that bit.
There's nothing really much more I can say on it. Like, it's just a stonewall penalty for me. And like I said, I'll come back to it. I'm not biased. If that wasn't a penalty, and I said Fleming's wasn't against Sunderland, for anyone who's like cares to know, like, it's a stonewall penalty. I was screaming when he didn't give that. Like, it was unbelievable. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah, I mean, you make some good points, to be fair. I do agree. He doesn't win the ball. The ball hits him. I do agree with that bit. But I think the touch on the ball, I think any officials that in the letter of the law with the rules will just be like, well, there's a touch on the ball. That's why.
Do you know what as well, Joe? Just to come back in on you. A few weeks ago, we had one against Sunderland where Oliver Song flew in the box and he gave a penalty. And we all said, oh, if you're diving in the box more often than not, like, whether it's going to be a penalty in that. Like, what about that? Like, we had that Oliver Song one given against us. And then we've had that not given against us. Like, come on. Do you know what I mean? There's one's worse than the other, and I know which one's worse personally. Son didn't touch the ball. The lad stood on Son. Do you know what I mean? And we still had it given against us. And then there's that. To me, that's just a blatant penalty.
Yeah, fair enough. A lot of comments coming in. Paul Johnson says he didn't get the ball before the man, and that isn't even a rule anyway. If he can get the ball, but he still fouls the man, it's a foul. JK says if Oliver Songs is a penalty, that one was. Jamie Brown says the ref's arse went after the Annabelle incident. Martin Stevenson has been saying there's a lot. Martin, your comments are all over it, Gaff. Lee Greenwood says no consistency. Great point about the Son penalty, says Dominic Hall. Andrew, I'll come to you next. Your thoughts on this one, please, mate?
I'm fuming because Chris has literally robbed my argument there. It's all right. No, I thought at the time it's blatant penalty. What's he doing? Absolute knobhead. And then, like you, the more I've seen it, the more I'm like, is it a penalty or like I'm still a little bit on the fence with it, but. If you have to give if the Son penalty gets given, it's very, very similar to this. And if the Son penalty gets given, this penalty has to be given as well. Like, I'm very the contact sport. You know, you go in and you're gonna get kicked and this, that, and the other. And for me, it'd be soft, but it's if the Son penalty against Sunderland gets given, this has to get given, and that's. You know, that there's not much more on it. Like, for me, it's a penalty because of the rules of the law. Like,
yeah, it's not even about touching the ball. Like, you can win the whole of the ball, but if you're still wiping through your man, it's irrelevant. Like, in the modern game,
you don't need to write that every 30 seconds, Martin.
Yeah, got there in the end. You don't even. It doesn't even matter. If you get a touch on the ball and you still wipe someone out, you're getting yellow carded or you're getting sent off or whatever in the modern game. Like. He doesn't even win the ball. The ball hits him.
Yeah.
So, for me.
That's why I'm like very, very on edge with it because there's definitely contact on ball, but like you say, it hits him. But then his Edwards already going down. But for the laws that they're doing at the minute, like that has to be given as a pen.
Yeah. Difficult one. Well, I think it is. Chris doesn't. Sam, we'll come to you, mate. What are your thoughts on it? On that particular incident?
I mean, I think it's a penalty. I think it's for the exact same reasons. If that's outside the box, that's a foul because you can win the ball but go through the man. My only argument for it not being is I reckon if VAR's involved there, I don't reckon VAR gives it. I reckon VAR leaves it as it is.
I agree with that.
So And then if you're having that argument, then you're saying there's grey lines there and then there's grey areas to it. So I think it is. Obviously, there's an element of bias there. But, you know, it's not even a clean tackle. He literally slips. There's no control in that tackle. He's lucky that the ball has ended up going into his legs direction, but it's still taken Edwards down. Edwards is literally going to get to the ball if his legs aren't there. He's not. Edwards hasn't kicked it out of play. He's literally touched it past him. So for me, it's a penalty, but it's such an awkward one when it's not clear. And like I say, I reckon VAR would have left it as it was. So
yeah,
shame really. But again, it's not the be all and end all in the game. Should have won it before that. So
yeah, I brought this comment from Chase the Dream on screen because he says Foster also took a PNE player out in the first half, which should have been a penalty to be equitable and fair. Well, mate, in the view of balance, as TurfCast always like to be balanced. By the way, I appreciate the woman, I can't remember her name. I don't know if you told me your name. The woman who came up to me yesterday and said, I love watching TurfCast. You always give a really good, fair and balanced point of view. You're not like these other channels. She weren't specifying burner channels, but, you know, other bigger channels that just go off on one and try and get clicks. But in the means of balance and the discussion of balance, we have that one ready. Preston fans are saying that this should have been a penalty when Lyle Foster challenges whoever the hell that is. He's got it. For me, I don't think this one is a penalty. But weirdly, I think if VAR got involved, then they might actually turn this one over. Lyle Foster comes in. Again, unfortunately, I can't show you the footage. But Lyle Foster comes in. The shot's already away, which to me means it shouldn't be a penalty. But I think that rule probably died out around 15 years ago because VAR doesn't ever seem to look at that. He makes clear contact with the Preston player, to be fair, to the point where he then goes down. This is the aftermath of that, right? This is the aftermath of Lyle sliding in and contacting the player there. The main thing here for me is that not one single Preston player is appealing for that. Not even the guy on the floor. They don't think it's a penalty. Even the guy that got wiped out. I don't think that one's a penalty personally. And again, there might be an element of bias there, but same as Chris, I do like to say that I feel like I am quite balanced. You may or may not disagree. I'm sure Murphy Brown will have something to say about that and call me a prick or something. But I don't think that one's a penalty. Sam, I'll come to you first on this one again. We'll do it the opposite way. What are your thoughts on that one? Can you even remember it? Because I don't even remember it at the time. I just saw Preston fans crying about it on Twitter, so I went back to watch it.
I thought it was a block by Foster originally, but it's a Trafford save, isn't it, in the end? Does it not? Does it? Because he gets his shot off. Am I right?
The shot's here now. The shot. He gets the shot off 100%. Whether it goes out or
Trafford saved it.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Did it?
So
right.
I think because Trafford saved it, I think that's the only argument that I would have is that the tackle hasn't influenced the fact that he's not scored. He's not following through anymore on that shot to get any more power or placement at all. Like, he's had a shot, it's been saved. But I do agree for the opposite reason as to what I've said about Edwards. Is I think if you get VAR involved in that, I think they give that. I
agree. But I don't think it's fit for purpose at this stage. But I agree. I think they'll come in and they'll just mess around with it and end up giving it.
Yeah. And like I say, I think if he doesn't get the shot away and then that happens, I reckon the referee gives a penalty. But I don't. I think because he gets the shot away and it's almost through him taking the shot, his foot then hits onto Foster's foot, but the shot's happened and he's not scored from it. The ref's just like, let's move on. But I think that would be one of those VAR situations in the Premier League where they go, oh, all right, we need to do something here because we've got the capabilities of looking back. I don't think it is, personally. Simply for the fact that he got the shot off.
Yeah, I agree. The ball's gone. Lee Greenwood says, just to give a balanced view, both this one and Edwards, the ball is gone. completely different, I think, Lee, because Edwards takes the touch round the man, and then if he isn't felled, probably gets the ball. Whereas this guy's taken a shot, and the ball is very, very, very much gone. Chaser Dream says Foster caught. He's the guy that thinks it is a penalty. That obviously brought this discussion up. A split second after the shot, it went wide. If memory serves me right, like I've said earlier, mate, I can't remember, but Chris has a better memory than me, and says that Trafford saves it. Flyover Fred says if VAR were involved, they'd still be drawing offside lines from the home game against PNE. Clark Blue 1882 says anywhere else on the pitch, and that is considered a late challenge, hence a penalty. Chris, what are your thoughts on it, mate?
I agree with what Sam said. I think they just don't. VAR probably would give that. But you see it so many times when there's a challenge come in late in an attempt to block a shot, and if they catch the man, as long as the shot they get the shot off, they just don't give him. I think he's lucky. I do think he's lucky, because with VAR they probably would give it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's lucky. That would be the best thing I could say about that. He's lucky because with VAR they'd look at it, but I just think the way the games are refereed now, you're just not going to get that. If you get your shot off, keeper saves it, you're not getting it, unfortunately. But like someone said, like if that's anywhere else on the pitch and it's a pass off, you're getting it. But when you get a shot off, it's like, you know, it's almost like different rules, or like, it's not a different rule, but you know what I mean. Like if it's a shot or it's a pass, it's two different things. Like you just don't get them, generally speaking.
Yeah, Andrew, do you think it's a pen?
No. I think, you know, I agree with you. If VAR look at it, they give a penalty, but I don't think it's a pen. Like it's split second in between the shot and him actually catching him. I think, like you say, it's damning that not a single player's appealing for it. I think it's clutching at straws, the fact that we should have had a pen, and obviously the Hannibal incident, they're trying to clutch at straws and say that they should have. So, but no, it's not a pen.
Fair enough. We have hit the hour mark, and I do need to be wrapped up within 10 minutes. But there is one more thing I do want to discuss before we get into the man of the matches. The league table, obviously not a good weekend for Burnley. Burnley dropped points away at Preston. Sheffield United won and have gone top of the league. Remember, Sheffield United were docked 2 points, so they technically have 72, or have accumulated, should I say, 72 points. Leeds United obviously play on Monday night against Sunderland, obviously, which is good news in a way that means somebody around us is dropping points, but a win for Leeds will see them go back to the top of the table on 72 points, which means we will be 5 points behind Sheffield United and 7 points behind Leeds. However, we would be 3 points ahead of Sunderland, but if Sunderland win, we would stay third on goal difference, unless Sunderland win by 9 goals or more, which is not going to happen. And we will remain 4 points behind Leeds United. But I've seen people, and I'll go in order of the screen here. Bear in mind that I do want to be wrapping up in 9 minutes. But I've seen people on Twitter saying automatics are gone. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I don't think automatics are gone. It's starting to look more and more unlikely as the season goes on with all these draws, however. And I know I said that Portsmouth and Preston were involved in a more favourable run, and we've ended up dropping points to both of them. But we still, in my opinion, have the more favourable results between now and the between now and the end of the season. We just need to learn to put the ball in the back of the net. However, people might not be confident we can do that. And that's why they're obviously saying that they feel like automatics is gone. But the way I look at it, Sheffield United have to play Leeds. Chances are they lose that match. They also have to then come to the turf. That's your point. That's your 5 points gap closed there. If we continue, if we start winning, I know it's a big if. But some people are saying automatics are gone. I agree. It doesn't look great at the minute. Potentially being 5 points adrift on Monday night, or at best 4 points adrift. But looking over our shoulders at Sunderland. Obviously, we don't need to discuss anybody lower than 4th because it's only the top 4 that are going for the top 2. But yeah, Andrew, your thoughts on that? Automatics gone? Is that dramatic, or is it unlikely the best way of describing it? Or are you of the mindset of what's the point in discussing now? There's so many twists and turns. Leeds are going to lose games. Sheffield United will lose games. What are your thoughts on it, mate?
Leeds are going to fall apart like Leeds always do. So I'm still not completely ruling out automatics, but it's starting to feel less likely. I think playoffs is probably what we've got to look forward to, but it's when we play Sheffield United, I feel like that's going to sort of determine when we get to that game, you know, what sort of position we're in, what sort of position Sheffield United are in. When we get to that game, that'll be when I'll start thinking, you know, playoffs are gone. Automatics are gone. It's going to be playoffs, but, you know, Leeds always bottle it, don't they? So that's going to happen. Sheffield United,
I'm not
there's
sure,
still
mate.
a chance. Well, but Sheffield United, there's still a chance. Sunderland, you know, there's still a chance that they can. So, yeah, it's too early for me at this moment. I think when we get to the Sheffield United game, that's when I might start to worry.
Yeah, fair enough. Chris, your thoughts, please, mate?
Yeah, I think it's a tall order to get in the playoffs. Like, we can say we've got favourable games and that, but we just don't win them, do we? Like, that's the... We've got no momentum really behind us. We've got a 20-match unbeaten run, but I don't know how many of them have been draws. Is it 20, 21 games unbeaten or something? But how many have been draws? Like, I don't really count that as momentum. Like, that's just, to me, like, I'm looking at that game tomorrow night and I'm thinking, if you're realistic about you actually want to finish in the top two, I'd be wanting Sunderland to beat Leeds personally, to keep that at 4 and 5, because if it goes to 7 and 5, you're not catching Leeds 7 ahead of you. You may just catch Sheffield, so there's only one team you can catch. Like, I don't know. I think I agree with Andrew. I think they're destined for the playoffs, but you know, Coventry are absolutely flying at the minute. When you look at, I just look at the teams below us and I think, would we beat Sunderland over at Wembley in a one-off game? I'm not sure we would.
We don't lose games, though. My worry is if we play Sunderland over 2 legs. I think over 2 legs, Sunderland would probably beat us at the minute.
I just think when we played them the other week...
In one game...
I know, but when we played them the other week, for me, it was a level playing field again. You can't say it was like the first game. We discount that. And they were so much better than us, and we were at home. I don't know. If we ended up in the playoffs with Sunderland, I wouldn't feel confident about going on.
No, I
personally, but...
Sunderland's the only team that worries me in the playoffs. I think anybody else. Obviously, I wouldn't want to play Blackburn for obvious reasons, but I do think we beat them over 2 legs or even in a one-off game.
Yeah, probably. I think they probably could beat most of the teams, but I don't think it'd be a problem getting to the playoff final. I mean, Coventry are flying, but you expect they'll fade off at some point, whether they've peaked too soon, but I don't know. It's just Sunderland. If they were in the playoffs with anyone, whoever they're in the playoffs with, I'm just not sure I'd fancy him to beat them in a one-off game. For me,
yeah, fair enough. Sam, your thoughts? I will remove that in a second. There you go, so people can see your lovely face.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's still not impossible, but the reality is it's looking more and more like we are the best of the rest. We don't have that cutting edge. I'm not being funny, but a team that has drawn 14 games in a season and then lost 2, like those 14 games of draws, you could name about 8 and 9 where you think, how on earth have you drawn that game? Like, yeah, we don't look like a team that has got that cutting edge at the moment. And Sheffield United and Leeds are able to pick up wins and get wins out of nothing. Sheffield United's win the other day, it was a tough game to go to Luton, who are bottom of the table, and they can still get a win. We draw that game. 100% we draw that game. We don't have enough to just keep putting pelters into the box. And then I agree with you, chaps. I think if we end up playing Sunderland or multiple other teams in that playoffs right now, I think we are the better team. But I don't think we have enough at the moment. And certainly the way we're playing now, we don't have enough for automatic at the moment. Those two teams are pulling away week on week, and we're just slowly handing it to them. So we either need to, let the shackles off and get the creative players on and just say, go at teams. Now we've got these records for clean sheets and stuff like that. I don't care now if Trafford concedes a goal in next game, but we score 4. Like, I'm not bothered for clean sheets anymore. I don't care if we manage to get another 0-0 and he's, and it goes on for another week, and so just go out into a game and just give Sheffield Wednesday a good go, because they're a good team, but you have to sit there and say, at what point is the levels to this situation? If we're saying that a team like Sheffield Wednesday is a good team and that we shouldn't be beating them, then we're not destined for the automatics anyway. We should be going out to teams like that, and we should be on the front foot.
Yeah, completely agree. Fingers crossed we do that, and Parker makes the changes we all discussed earlier in the show. Obviously, it's all past now, but there is still quickly one question I need to ask everybody. Get your man of the matches in the comments, please. I'll put all the best ones on screen. I'll come to the lads and get all of theirs. Sam's having a coughing fit, so I'll start with Chris. Chris, who was your man of the match for the game against Preston North End, please, mate?
Lyle Foster. No, Josh Cullen.
Stop making my thing, Chris.
Josh Cullen, I think he was just everywhere. He's at the heart at the minute of everything that's good about us. Is he positive and passes forward as much as we probably like? No, but he's steady in the middle of that park, and he's just keeps us moving, keeps us ticking. I think I'm sick of giving it to Egan Riley and Esteve. I think I'll go something different. So I'll go for Cullen. I think he had a good game.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Sam survived the coughing fit, but just in case, we'll come to Andrew first.
Well, I can't say Foster now, can I? Steve, yeah, I have to give it Steve. I thought he was brilliant once again. But because it's getting boring, I want to say Hannibal as well, because I thought he played really well up until the incident, and even until he went off, I thought he handled it really well, and I thought he was having a good game.
Yeah. Flyover Fred says Cullen. Dominic Hall says Cullen man of the match. Ross Williams says Roberts. That's left field. David Gold says Anthony. He gave 100%. John Craven says CJ for the block when they were in. Paul Booth says Hannibal till that fiasco. Not the word I describe it, mate. A fiasco. Robert Darville says CJ saved us a few times. The ref says David Gold. That's the last person. I'd rather give it Foster before the ref. Player map suggests man of the match is Cullen, says Clark 1882. Clara Owl says CJ. Egan Riley says Twin Cities Clarets. Danny Aston says CJ. Lee Greenwood says Humphreys. He really is quality, and it goes under the radar to a certain extent. I agree, he is very quality, and it does go under the radar. He's very, very good. For me, I know it's a bit boring, but Egan Riley, I thought he was fantastic again. We need to get that man tied down. Obviously, it's already been mentioned in the comments, but that block was absolutely superb. Shows that he can do that side of it rather than the progressive passing side of it. I know Burnley fans know he can, but he's absolutely superb. He's getting better every single week, and the fact that we could be losing him this summer on a free is absolutely mind-boggling, and I really hope we don't. But if we don't get promoted, I think we lose quite a lot of players. Trafford, CJ, Steve, obviously Josh Brown is out of contract. I'm sure some people won't be too bothered that he's leaving for free potentially in the summer. Kieran, if you're still in the chat. Sam, your man of the match, please, mate.
I was going to go Humphreys. To be fair, I thought it was solid as usual. I think the last couple of weeks he's really taken that step up as well. And I think defensively, I think he's a very bright left back, and obviously because he's interchangeable, he can play centre half, he can probably play right back as well. He could probably play a holding midfielder if you wanted him to. He's just a really, really good asset for us to have. So yeah, I thought he was really good the other day.
Yeah, fair enough. Completely agree. But yeah, CJ Egan Riley for me, I do think he is class Lewis Humphreys. But lads, I will wrap it up there. I'll start working 15 minutes, thankfully. It's just while I'm sat here. But I always appreciate you coming on the show, lads. Thank you very much. It's good to have a full house again. I think it's been a while since we've had a full house. But yeah, looking forward to Friday against Sheffield Wednesday. Fingers crossed we see some more attacking play. We see some positive changes to the side. Edwards, for example, and potentially somebody else. I'll say now, if you joined late, I know nobody said it in the comments while Murphy Brown pipes up, but if you joined late, don't worry. As soon as I press end stream on this now, the video stays on YouTube and on Facebook, whatever you've been watching it on, for you to watch back at your leisure. And I will, of course, be putting the podcast up within the next couple of hours. So, yeah, the podcast will be available tonight, and it will definitely be ready for your morning commute. But, lads, thank you for coming on. Fingers crossed we can do it again next weekend. All of you may or may not be free, but it's always good to have you on. But I really appreciate it. But, yeah, fingers crossed we're discussing a win next weekend. And if you're watching, looking forward to the pre-game show ahead of Sheffield Wednesday. I've already spoken to the lads from Wednesday week, who, by the way, picked me to gold for that. So we will have to see if they're any good with their content. So we've got them on to see if they're any good. And if they are good, to get some hints and tips on how to beat them next year. But lads, thank you for coming on the show. As always, it's a pleasure. And we'll see you all next time.